Some punishments are so strange and unbelievable that they almost don't sound real. These punishments go way beyond anything you could imagine. Today, we're diving into some of the craziest punishments ever. The kind that make you wonder how people even came up with them. Stick around to see which one you think is the absolute worst. And don't forget to drop a like if you wouldn't survive any of these. Let's start with something that feels simple, but was actually really harsh. One of the weirdest things I've ever read about. The human lizard punishment.
This is a crazy true story about the real-life lizard man. This man's name is Eric Sprague, and he is best known as the human lizard. He has body modifications such as tattoos, sharpened teeth, and even a split tongue. He went from having absolutely no tattoos on his body to being tattooed over 700 hours. He has spent over $300,000 to look like a lizard and could not be happier. Part 2 coming soon.
This one got its name because the person being punished had to crawl around on all fours for hours, sometimes even days, acting like a lizard. They weren't allowed to stand up straight, and sometimes they had to eat off the floor to really make it humiliating. Imagine being forced to move like a reptile while everyone around you laughed or ignored you. It wasn't about pain. It was about stripping away dignity and making the person feel less than human. The cut-off hair punishment.
Here's crazy school punishments that actually happened. Lamaya Camon was sitting at her desk one afternoon playing with the beads in her newly braided hair. A few minutes later, the teacher called her over to her desk, chopped off a piece of her hair, claiming it was distracting other students. Holding your pee. Multiple schools across the world punish their students by not allowing them to go to the toilet. This picture shows a girl's severely swollen knees. It was later discovered that the girl suffered these injuries after hours spent kneeling on frozen peas.
Back in history, people saw hair as a symbol of beauty, power, or even respect. So when someone did something wrong, one of the punishments was to shave their head or cut off their hair in strange shapes. It doesn't sound painful, but imagine living in a world where your appearance defined your entire reputation. Walking around with missing patches of hair was like wearing a giant sign that said, "I've been punished." It was public embarrassment that lasted for weeks, or even months, way worse than a quick scolding. Next up, now picture this, having to stand forever.
This was one of the most cruel and torturous punishments in medieval Europe. The standing torture, prisoners were forced into a narrow sealed chamber, barely wide enough to fit their body. Stone walls surrounded them tightly, pressing in from all sides. Breathing was difficult, movement impossible. A small opening was left for food and water, just enough to keep them alive, but not to let them live. As days turned into weeks, the pain grew unbearable. With no space to sit, the prisoner was trapped in an eternal stand, their legs swelling, their muscles cramping, their minds spiraling into madness. Sleep, impossible. The body screamed for relief. The mind begged for mercy, but there was none. Eventually, after days or even weeks, the prisoner's body would collapse, but there was no space to fall. They would die, standing. This punishment was designed not just to kill, but to break a person completely. Can you imagine surviving even a single day in there?
Okay, not literally forever, but this punishment was about forcing someone to stand completely still for hours and hours at a time. No sitting, no leaning, no resting. If they moved, they'd get yelled at or pushed back into place. Think about how hard it is to stand in line at the grocery store for just 10 minutes. Now imagine doing that for half a day. Your legs ache, your back stiffens, and your mind starts racing. It's a punishment that looks easy, but becomes pure torture the longer it goes on. And then there's the log punishment.
Most people have never heard of scaphism, one of the most brutal forms of execution in history. This horrifying punishment was invented during the Persian Empire. The victim would be trapped between two hollowed-out logs, with their head, arms, and legs exposed. Then, they were force-fed large amounts of milk and honey, causing severe diarrhea. Their exposed skin was also coated with honey before they were set adrift in a stagnant pond. The combination of bodily waste and the sticky sweetness quickly attracted swarms of insects. Flies and other bugs would bite the victim, lay eggs on their skin, and burrow into their flesh, leading to unbearable infections. What made this punishment even more terrifying was that executioners would continuously feed the victim and reapply honey, ensuring they remained alive for as long as possible. Dehydration or starvation wouldn't bring a swift death, only prolonged suffering and agony. This slow, nightmarish process left the victim fully conscious as they rotted away, trapped in unimaginable fear and despair. It was truly one of the most inhumane punishments ever devised.
This one was brutal in a different way. The punished person had to carry around a huge log, sometimes heavier than they could handle, for a set amount of time. The log represented the weight of their mistake, but in reality, it was just exhausting. Picture having to drag around a tree trunk while everyone else went about their normal day. Not only did it tire you out, but it also drew constant attention to your punishment. One of the strangest has to be the door on the neck punishment.
This punishment is worse than doing prison time. This device that this man is wearing is called a cangue, and it was used in parts of Asia to punish people who had committed crimes. Now this thing might not look that bad, but it's actually so incredibly uncomfortable. It's a long piece of square wood around their neck and it weighs about 30 pounds. So because you're wearing this, you can't scratch your face, rub your eyes, or even eat by yourself. Because your arms can't reach anywhere near your face, you gotta have someone to feed you. And forget sleeping, you cannot lay down with this thing on. The only thing you might do is do what this guy here is doing. He's literally standing up and the cangue is holding him up just to catch a few minutes of sleep. If you committed the crime with other people, you might all wear a cangue together. It looks like a door on your neck. And after a few days of wearing this thing, you had learned your lesson. And if you're still here, please do me a huge favor and follow my Instagram, please. Gotta close the gap.
Yes, an actual door. In some places, the punished person had a wooden door or a heavy plank strapped around their neck and shoulders. They had to walk through crowded streets like that, unable to lower their head or move comfortably. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was humiliating. Everyone who saw them instantly knew they'd been punished, and the image of a person stuck inside a doorframe probably never left their mind. Now, here's a darker one: finger removal.
Yakuza finger removal, also known as yubatsum. It's a ritual done to gain forgiveness after a member committed an offense to someone else in his group, and it consists of amputating portions of one's own little finger to show sincere apology and remorse to the other. I've put this one as the least painful because it doesn't usually cause lifelong lasting pain, and it isn't deadly, unlike the brutal ones further down the list. Bastinado. Bastinado consists of beating the victim with a light rod, knotted cord, or lash, exclusively on the feet. Unlike most types of flogging, it is meant more to be painful than to cause actual injury. Even though if done too harshly or for too long, it might cause the victim to not be able to walk anymore. This one is also not deadly. There were two variations of this. If the victim was lucky, his head would be placed on a pedestal and the elephant would crush it, instantly killing him. This wasn't that painful because the victim would die instantly, but the second variation wasn't as forgiving. Some royal members wanted to sit down and enjoy a long show, so they ordered the elephant riders to train the elephants to walk over non-vital parts first, such as the legs and arms. The person—
Don't worry, we're not going into gore here. In some cultures, instead of jail time or fines, they'd take away a person's finger as a permanent reminder of their mistake. The idea was that every time the person looked at their hand, they'd remember what they did wrong. It wasn't just about punishment. It was about creating a lifelong mark of shame. While it sounds harsh, it also shows how differently people thought about justice compared to today. Finally, let's talk about something chilling: the underground camp. This was a punishment where people were forced to live and work underground, often in total darkness. Sometimes it was mines. Sometimes it was actual underground pits or shelters. The point was to isolate them from society, cut off their freedom, and make every day feel endless. Imagine being trapped underground with little light, no fresh air, and no way out until your punishment was over. It's almost like being buried alive, but forced to keep going. So, which of these punishments do you think is the most extreme? Was it the humiliation of being turned into a human lizard? The endless pain of standing still? or the heavy burden of carrying a log everywhere you went. Each one shows just how creative and honestly cruel people could get when it came to enforcing rules. If you made it this far, comment, "Never punish me like this," so I know you're part of the fearless squad. And of course, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because we're only scratching the surface of the strangest punishments in history.